everybody. Welcome to WikiTree Day 2023. My name is Sandy, and I'm here today with the gentlemen from Italy. We have Frank and Chris here from the Italy project on WikiTree. I am thrilled that you guys are here because I have, as you probably have heard many times, me saying on G2G and throughout, I have brick walls in Italy. So you guys are going to help me out, as along with all the viewers, in learning how to crack the code and learn to find and read Italian documents and Italians throughout the world, right?
We're happy to help, aren't we, Frank?
Exactly. We'll be masters by the end of this. It'll be great.
That would be cool. And I have to just put in a little plug here. So as you know, I usually do Friday night bingo, and without a doubt, and I'm very sorry to say this if I offend anybody, I'm not trying to, but without a doubt, these gentlemen really came on my bingo and blew me away. I was so amazed by what I learned that I was actually able to bring back a generation or two with my own research. So I hope that everybody watching that has Italian ancestors in your family line, that you'll be able to glean some information here. And I think what we're going to do, correct me if I'm wrong, gentlemen, we're going to start in the United States and go backwards to Italy. Right?
Exactly. Yeah, that's kind of the best way to go. Just
we're gonna
what you know and work backwards.
Right, we're gonna go back in time, sort of, and just sometimes they go back and forth, but we'll get to that later.
Well, let's first. I think that does make sense, as Frank said. So, Frank, let's talk a little bit first about how to join the project, so everybody knows.
Yeah, so absolutely. Frank, so we have a G2G post, right? Yeah.
It just like every project on WikiTree, if you go to a project's homepage, you will find that there's a little box, usually green, sometimes orange, but there's a G2G post that says answer this. Click on it. You do need to make sure that when you click on the G2G post, read the instructions that the Italy project has for you, and then answer accordingly. You do not have a trail program for Italy, correct?
That's right. No requirements other than join.
And you know what I like about this project as well? You guys are like, you don't have to live in Italy. You don't have to have ancestors from Italy. You might like the food. You might not like the food. You just have to have a love of Italy and like researching and helping out. And I think that's very welcoming.
Yeah, so of course. We're a very welcoming group. We'll take in anybody, you know? We're like the Italian grandmother of WikiTree. We'll take anybody into our house and feed you.
Now, I don't know why I've heard Italian grandmothers will take you in and feed you. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay, well, let's go ahead.
Yeah, you're not leaving that house until you've been fed, you've heard a story or two, or 3 or 4,000.
And then you're all set. Then you can leave. Well, before everybody leaves this presentation, why don't we get started in the United States with Chris? So,
all right,
Chris, are you ready?
All right, let's see if I can share my screen here. All right, I think, stop sharing. Okay, I need to share my screen, don't I? Let's see. Press share screen.
Technology. It's a wonderful thing. It works.
All right. Share the entire screen. Okay, let me know if this works. Okay, can you see my screen?
Oh, that's there's Chris's. There we go.
That's mine. So let me start.
There we go.
Oh, that's fun.
Chris's. Okay. You start.
So why are we starting in the United States, Chris?
Well, we're starting in the United States because that is where many of the Italian immigrants arrived. They went to Argentina. They went to Brazil. They went to Australia. In my case, they obviously went to the United States of America, specifically to a city called Haverhill, Massachusetts, which you'll be hearing about a lot. A lot.
And I guess the other reason too that we started in the United States is because Italian records are kind of, I guess they're challenging to look at if you've never done it before, and they're not always easy to search because, unlike say in the U.S. where you have it's on a state by state basis, in Italy every single little town from Rome, ginormous metropolis, down to tiny little villages of less than 1,000 people. They all maintain their own records, and so everything is local, local, local. So in order to be able to find your ancestors' records, you need to know exactly where they came from. And the best way to find that information, if you don't have that information already from your relatives, is by looking in U.S. records, because they've got the best sets of clues available. And so, like what Chris has got up here will kind of give you a hint to that.
Yes, I have the naturalization papers right here for my second great grandmother, Caterina Cappola's sister, Concetta. And she, along with her brother and a few other people, came to America. And eventually, by the 1940s, they had to fill in a naturalization paper in order to be naturalized as American citizens. And here we have the form. As you can see, we have the birth date, which may be off for a couple of days. You can't really expect everyone to remember the day they were born. And you have the town right here. In this case, we have San Pietro Armida, Italy, which is a small commune in Calabria. And that's where my paternal grandfather's family is from. And as you can see in this document, we have she was widowed, and she was married to her husband Vincenzo Papatola on June 9th, 1907 in San Pietro. And she arrives in America in 1911 on June 1st. Now, I have not found that ship manifest, but I have found other ones, and it's pretty cool. You also see down here we have the list of her children: Francesco, Rosa, James, Paul. All of them were, most of them were born and live in Haverhill, but only one of them was sent back after a period of time. I'm not really sure what the deal is, but according to his son, maybe he just wanted to go back, I've been in contact with Francesco's son, and he said that his dad just wanted to go back home. He married a woman in the United States, and they had like a couple daughters. And then after a few years of marriage, they split up, unfortunately, and he went back, married another woman, and, things happened, I guess.
Well, I think there's two things to really glean from what you were looking at and what Chris just said. Is first, this is a gold mine to find the children and the spouses, along with the location, as Chris and Frank both say. If you don't have that location, it's going to be challenging to get back. But this is just truly a gold mine, looking at all these dates and names, and also where they ended up living in the United States. But I think it's also important to note, we sometimes think that everything turns out rosy when they come over to the States or wherever that they immigrate to. And not every immigrant has a rosy story. So when you say that he went back, he was homesick probably and felt more comfortable back home.
Yeah, like I remember one time I was telling Sandra here about this one guy that was, unfortunately, he was a railroad worker in Haverhill. He went to Montana, and his document was actually stolen. His naturalization form, like this, it was actually stolen, and he had to get a new one in Montana. And the one in Montana just explained the whole situation and everything, and it was basically the early form of identity theft, if you really think about it.
It really was. And this is going to be probably our first comment to make about your title of your presentation, Cracking the Code and Reading Documents. So the naturalization documents are important, as Frank mentioned, for the town, and as Chris is showing us, all the relatives that are there. And then adding on if your document is stolen, I can't even imagine what it would be like to get a new naturalization paper in today's modern time, let alone back then.
Yeah. Well, this was in the 1940s and stuff like that. All right, but
Yes,
we also have in the United States, we have censuses that are taken every 10 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
So here we have in Haverhill, living on High Street. Why is this here? living on High Street, we have my second great grandmother. We have Concetta's brother Paul, or Paolo, and here you have him with his family. We have his wife Antoinette, his son Francis, Beatrice, Concetta, Lena, and James. And as you can see, Beatrice has been selected for the sample line. So if we scroll down the sample line, we will see birthplaces. And here we have San Pietro and Maida twice. Her father and her mother were both born there. So that's a good place to start looking for your ancestors' birthplace in those documents as well.
And that would be another way of
Sadly, we
cracking.
don't have anything like that. Yeah, but sadly, we don't have anything like that for the 1903 census. That's
But like
but
you see, like on the
immigration
1920, 1910 census will also have information about if they emigrated, like a year, which may or may not be accurate. Whether or not they're a citizen may or may not be accurate, but at least gives you some clues. It doesn't give you anything other than a country though usually. So if it just says, yeah, they came here from Italy, we're like, well, I know that, but where in Italy? And so. But you might get a clue from looking at the censuses. All right, well, he's there on the 1920 census, but not on the 1910 census. So maybe he came to the U.S. sometime before 1920. Part of what Sandy noted about not everybody having a happy story is that, not everybody has a very clean story either. There are plenty of people who emigrated to the U.S., especially like, in the first decades of the 20th century. And they may not have naturalized. They may have gone back and forth a couple of times, ultimately stayed, but never officially naturalized. So you might not have a naturalization record for them. And if they had children born in the U.S., they were obviously U.S. citizens. So you're not going to have any naturalization information for them. So you do kind of run into some potential problems there.
And it's about researching, keeping notes and researching this family line. And I agree with you, Frank. I have one that I'm researching, never naturalized, died before they even tried. So I think that with any research that we do, we shouldn't assume if we're looking at a census that additional family members are not there. They could be. You just got to keep digging.
Yep. Chris, do you have any immigration manifest up?
Oh yeah, of course. I have a passport application, which can also give you a whole bunch of information and even a picture or two. But that's my great grandfather right there. That's Vincenzo, looking kind of sharp there. And you see, he was visiting. He went to back to San Pietro to get married, and this was like in the 1920s, 1919, 1920. So, wish we had the actual document, but yeah, that's really cool. He lists his father and all that fun stuff.
Now, what is this document? What are we looking at?
That was a passport application.
Okay.
Passport. But we also have this. This is a ship manifest from 1913. And Vincenzo has been known to go back and forth from Italy to Haverhill many, many, many times. And by the way, not one person's name has been changed to Ellis Island in the history of their immigration program.
Thank you for saying that. You want to say it one more time?
Okay, fine. Not one last name has ever been changed to Ellis Island, period. Okay? My last name is proof of that. Come on. My last name is long.
Yeah, I mean, the fact of the matter is that these arrival manifests weren't made in the United States. They were made by the shipping companies before the ships ever left port in whatever country they left. So, if there's a misspelling on here, it's because most people coming to the U.S., especially from Italy, did not know how to spell. People the spelling of last names was pretty fluid even up until the first couple of decades of the 20th century in Italy. A lot of spelling depended on how it sounded to whoever was doing the scribing that day. And there are a lot of consonant sounds in Italy that are easily swapped and confused, and so variations in spelling are all over the place. But yeah, Ellis Island had hundreds of different people who spoke multiple languages as interpreters. So it's not a matter of like I think they even have a scene like this in The Godfather where Vito Andolini comes into the U.S. and comes into Ellis Island and says, "Oh, you're from Corleone. We'll call you Corleone." It's like, no, that's not how it works.
No.
Not how that works, no. And you have to take into account that when they were arriving, it was like really crowded, so they might not have heard everything, So you have to take that into account. But here we have Vincenzo Ferriolo taking a trip in June 1913, and as you can see, it says he arrived. He was from San Pietro in Maida. He ships out of Naples, and let's see, there's his father Marco, his birthplace, and he was going to Havel. Why was he going to Havel? Well, you might want to check the next page to find out why. He was going to visit his aunt and uncle, Vincenzo Papatola and Concetta Coppola in Havel. That's where he was going. So you might want to always check the second page to see where your ancestor or whoever you're researching was going. That's time. It also gives you his height too. Wow, he was short.
Yeah, and it's a good point with the second page of the manifest. So these manifests have changed over time, right? So what Chris has is one here from 1913. So they expanded the manifest to 2 pages around 1905, 1906, and that actually had something that really helped me for my grandfather, because his naturalization documents, his petition and his declaration of intention both say he was born in Modugno, which is where all of his family was from. I went to the Modugno records. He's not there. So but then I noticed that on this, if you scroll all the way to the right, Chris, on that second page, the last column says, at the very top says, the first page says, "Where were you living?" But the second page at the very top says, "Where were you born?" And in my grandfather's case, he was living in Modugno, but he was born in a little town called Giovinazzo, which is about 5 miles outside of Modugno. And sure enough, I went to the Giovinazzo records, and there he was. Now, he didn't have that on his naturalization paperwork, on his petition, or on his declaration of intention. Both of them said, "I'm born in Modugno." Well, his immigration manifest says, "I was born in Giovinazzo," and it turns out it was the manifest from immigration that was correct. That's where he was born, not in Modugno. So people misremember or don't think, it's not important, I'm close enough. Modugno, Giovinazzo, they're only a couple miles from each other. But as I mentioned, when it comes to Italian records, it makes a difference, because they're 2 separate sets of records. You're going to find somebody in one, you won't find them in the other, because they're not combined. Now, in Chris's case, his people were born in San Pietro and they were living there, so they weren't moving around necessarily.
But this is a really great point too. Another cracking the code. So we went to the second page, which I'm not sure how many researchers really do. Sometimes they go look at the first page. Oh, there's a source. Let's add it. Let's not go any further. That second page is a great tip. And then what Frank said, you almost need a map as well. And both of you gentlemen have taught me to have a tab of Google Translate up, so I can kind of look at it, the words, and translate it, kind of learn Italian along the way. So it might be good to have a map up of the area and Google Translate, so you can really see. Frank, would this be equivalent to your example? Be equivalent to somebody saying, "I lived in, New York versus New York City"?
Right. Or like they say, I'm from Chicago, whereas they might actually be from a little village in the suburbs called Lincolnwood, which nobody outside of Chicago is going to have heard of Lincolnwood, but people have heard of Chicago. They know where that is. So yeah, definitely, it definitely makes a difference. And then you have the issue in Italy, geography speaking, that can cause confusion for folks, is that some big cities are also the names of provinces. So Now, Rome is a city. Rome is also a province that contains a bunch of 100 different little towns, each with their own set of records. So you might have somebody said, I came from Napoli, Naples, which could be they lived in the city of Napoli, which itself has about 7 different record offices because they kept records by neighborhood. But that's a side story. Or it could be I'm not from the city of Napoli, I'm from some town in the province of Napoli, which again, there's about 100 of them. So getting that detail matters. Sometimes you don't get the detail. Sometimes the closest you can get is they came from this province. Okay. Or they came from this region, which is like, all right, well, that's a bunch of provinces. And each of those provinces has, 50 to 100 towns. So hopefully you find something that's really a good spur to get you to look for something else to clue you into narrowing that geographic search down, because otherwise you're going to be digging through a ton of different records, a ton of different towns trying to find them, because most of these Italian records are not computer indexed. You cannot put names into Family Search or Ancestry and say, hey, I'm looking for the birth certificate or birth record of Giuseppe Santoro. Well, if I go to the places that have online databases and search, not going to find it. It is there, but it's not in a searchable index. You've got to actually scroll through, the images of the records, and sometimes there are indexes, sometimes there aren't, but yeah, anything you can do to narrow things down.
Yeah, and that's all you can really do. But
yeah, but that's a really, really great tip, because how many that are watching this go to one of those source repositories, do that search, and it comes up empty. So you think there's nothing there, but there really is something there. Chances are it's just something you're going to have to work for.
Yeah.
Or if you go up and you see a couple Giuseppes and you kind of try and force and massage the date to be your Giuseppe, but it's not, because
exactly.
you're not in the little village or the town. So
that's right.
really, really
names
good.
get repeated, and they get repeated, and they get repeated. So Giuseppe, super common name. Maria, super common name. There are a lot of very common surnames too, and so a town of a decent size might have 20 different people with the same name running around, and some of them might even have a father that has with shared names that might be related, not like very closely, but someplace back in line, because a lot of these communities were endogamous. People stayed and just kind of married into the community. They didn't move around much, so you get a lot of crossover.
Yes, yeah.
Chris, can I show you? Can I show a couple of other information documents from earlier?
Yeah, I'm gonna stop sharing because we're done. I think we're done with the states here.
Much. So before we jump over to the
let's go back to Europe, shall we?
The Italian record. Well, before we jump there, I wanna show. Let's see. Yeah. So this is an arrival manifest from 1903. Where one of my great grandfathers came on. So I mentioned, the post 1905 ones, they were 2 pages. This one is 1 page. You still get at least a last residence of where these people were from. If I switch it over, however, to, let's say, this guy who arrived in 1892. Let's see, I guess I'll have to, if I switch tabs, it doesn't work like that. I have to switch the presenting here. So let's do that real quick. No? Yes. There we go. All right. So this is an arrival from 1892. Again, it is at Ellis Island, although Ellis Island is not the only place where people arrive. Chris had an arrival in Boston, and people arrive before Ellis Island in different ports like Baltimore or Philadelphia or New York at Castle Garden or New Orleans or even Galveston, Texas. So don't just think, if you don't find them at Ellis Island, that they didn't arrive in the U.S. They may have arrived someplace else. But here's an 1892 arrival manifest. You can see not a whole lot of information on it. I'm looking at this guy who's on the third line, number 56, Lorenzo Terranova. He's a laborer, just says from Italy, arrived in New York. All I got. And then if you go to his naturalization, was done prior to 1906 when naturalizations became standardized and through the U.S. Department of Immigration across the United States. And you'll see that a local petition for naturalization does not have a lot. No, it doesn't. It says, oh,
Let's get back
thought
up
I
there.
was showing it. There it is. Okay.
There you
Here
go.
he is, Lorenzo Terranova, living in Providence, Rhode Island. I was born in Italy. Okay, well, not helpful. So it's got a date, which may be helpful if you can get something to help clue you into where in Italy they were from. So this is not going to help get you back across the ocean, unfortunately. And so in cases like this, what should you be looking for? In genealogy, we have this thing called the fan club, right? Friends, acquaintances, and neighbors. So let's look for family members of Lorenzo. Does he have younger brothers and sisters who might have come over at a later date, and maybe in on a manifest form that'll have, hey, this is where they actually live, not just Italy. They have friends that came to join them. Just
because
cast the net wider.
Yeah, because in my case, I had let's see, Vincenzo's uncle, well, like great uncle or whatever, his name was John, and he would bring countless people over from San Pietro to April. He would just like bring his cousins, his friends, whatever, just bring them all over. And there was this big Italian community in Haverhill, Massachusetts, and that is exactly how those little Italies in Boston, New York, and all those other places started. Because
Frank really mentioned another way of cracking the code here. I can't even imagine how long it would take me to find Lorenzo with just Italy, as your document showed. So go look in other areas where Lorenzo's name might be to find other family members or friends to try and narrow down a region. To a town would be fabulous. A town or a village would be fabulous. So again, you guys are giving us gold mines for cracking the code here.
Yeah. Well, we say we head over and look at some Italian documents, Frank?
Yeah, let's do that. So I'm going to go back to the project page, hopefully. See if we get this up.
Okay.
There we go. All right. So on our project page, we have a nice little tab called Project Resources that we maintain. And this gives you a lot of clues and helps on how to find records, where to find records, and then how to translate them or transcribe them or get the information out of them. So one thing I'm going to point out first is this primary source I've got here. It's called Vidi de Body, which is actually me. Big list of Italian civil and church records. And it's just a giant Google sheet that kind of gives you an idea of, well, depending on where your ancestor is from in Italy, here is where you might want to go look. So it's listed by region and then by province. And so again, this is an instance where you want to have a map out, or maybe the Italian version of Wikipedia to kind of help you with, like, well, if you know that they're from a certain town, but you don't know what province it is or what region it is, look up that town in Italian Wikipedia and it will tell you. So basically there's three different places where you can find Italian records online. The largest two are the Antenati Project, which is run by the Italian government, Ministry of Culture.
And that is free, correct?
It is free. This is what it looks like. The page is available in multiple languages, although I will tell you, it does. If you change it to English, there's not much that gets translated, so
yeah,
you may not want to bother.
And it should be noted that not all the towns are on Antenati.
That is correct. Not all towns in Italy have records online, period. And depending on when they were filmed and how they were filmed. Some are in some places, some are in others, some are in both places. It really varies, and so that's why I kind of make this
the work is
list up for
continuing,
folks.
and more towns or cities are added every day. Basically,
This is true. This is true. So, so just some quick pointers about Antenati. If I change it to English, it's probably a little bit easier to see. But there's two ways that you can search Antenati from their main screen. It defaults to search by registries, and so this is saying, okay, well, put in the location, and this is a town name. So if I put in Modugno, it actually has a matching database. So if you're typing it correctly, you get bonus points. You can narrow it down by year if you like, or you can not narrow it down by year. You can just leave it as wide open as you want. And typology is just saying, well, what kind of records are there? And are they birth records? Are they marriage records? Or are they death records? Now here you'd have to type it in Italian, so I would say don't bother. But if I type in Modugno and click search, I will get all the records that are available for Modugno in Antenati. And you can see that it's all from the archive of the state of Bari. There's 3 different eras of records here, and they go from 1809
Wow.
all the way, well, to 1900, and then skips for a while and then picks back up 1930 to 1935. So you've got more than 100 years worth of records in here. That's not the same for every place, because civil registration in Italy has an interesting history. So number one, Italy is a fairly new country. The country of Italy, as we know it, was only formed in 1861. Before that, it was a hodgepodge of different kingdoms and principalities and this, that, and the other. But for at least for a while, in the beginning of the 1800s, Napoleon came in and had control of just about all of the Italian peninsula, and he instituted civil record keeping like he had done in France. And so every place where he had control in Italy, they had civil records. So for those places under his control, you will find civil records from 1809, maybe a few years earlier up in the north, all the way through 1815 when Napoleon had his Waterloo and he went bye-bye. But then after that, most of Italy up in the north said, yeah, well, we've had enough of that. We're going back to what we used to do, which is everything is in church records.
So, but the South being the South in Sicily, well, Sicily came later because they always have to be difficult.
Yeah.
But the South,
in the South, which is the Kingdom of Naples, Kingdom of Sicily, which is actually, they're both the Kingdom of Sicily, but
it's complicated.
It's complicated.
Wait, let me go back real quick. So what is the point about the Kingdom of Naples and Kingdom of Sicily without getting too complicated? They are in here? Or they're not?
That is the only place where they decided to keep civil records going.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah. After Napoleon left, they said, hey, we kind of like this. We'll make a couple of little changes. But other than that, we're keeping this system. So
let me ask you about Sicily. Sicily is included in Antenati as well, and surrounding little tiny islands. Okay.
Correct. Yep. And Sicily only, but they were never under Napoleonic control. So they do not have civil records until 1820. But anything that came into existence after the Kingdom of Italy was founded in 1861, there are civil records. So this is one place for searching them. So you can search by town name, or you can click on the search by name, and this is the database where you can search for indexed records. Now, this index is actually the same index that is used by Family Search, because Family Search did all of the filming of these records, and they are the kind of the owners of the name database. So if you are participating in Italian indexing at Family Search, you are doing your part to make this database larger. It's still not very comprehensive. I would say maybe 10-15% of all Italian records are included in this name database. So again, if you search by name and you don't get a hit, don't be discouraged. It's not that it's not there, it's just that it hasn't been indexed. There are tens of millions of Italian records that are not indexed.
And I know in the pause here, that is yet another cracking the code.
Yeah, but here's a really interesting thing about some Italian records. Some birth records actually have some of these marriage records too, because my great-grandfather's birth record in Gesualdo, Italy, actually has his marriage to his wife Clementina Forgione in the margins in 1903, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, somewhere
Okay,
in the
so let me recap that for everybody because they might think that this is kind of crazy. You just said his birth record
yeah.
as his marriage record, so instantly we're thinking, how is that? Because he's born. So that it sounds like the local,
Yeah.
clerk for what we term went back, found the birth certificate, and wrote in the side
Yeah.
when he was also married. Interesting.
Yeah,
Yep.
that would happen like in the latter half of the 19th century. I don't know really when it started, but it started sometime in the 1860s, 1870s. I want to say. I'm not really sure, but it depends on the town. They'll just like put, oh yeah, this person got married in 19 or whatever.
Yeah. So like, here's my great grandfather's birth record from 1873.
Hmm.
And you may not be able to tell, but I can tell that in the upper right corner here, it says there's an annotation. It says, hey, on 3 December 1895, number 88 in Modugno, he married Anastaciota. So yeah, so this was kind of like the home base, And I've got records in one of my ancestral towns. They're doing this all the way back to the 1820s, making notes of future marriages.
This is huge. This is
Yeah.
a really huge tip. So
Yeah.
if you do find the birth, in let's say for me, I do not read Italian, but I know that this is a birth record. I would just use that as a source and move on for birth. But I'm missing a lot of information from that side there that somebody actually went back in and added the marriage and the spouse's name. They'll do this for male and female.
Correct,
Right?
correct. And it's harder to tell on this record because the entire thing is handwritten. So like there's a period from 1866 to 1874 where everything was handwritten because they were making new forms, I guess. But outside of that 8-year time span, you've got at least
Yeah.
pre-printed typeset forms that have just fill in the blanks mostly. This one even has a death notice in here. It's like he died in 1962. So
This is huge. This
yeah,
is a huge find.
yeah,
So again, if you don't know a language, don't assume that you're just looking at what. So how would this be indexed? Would this just be indexed probably as a birth record?
yeah. This is all of this is on his birth record. Now it would have, if you were to look at the 1962 death records in Modugno, which aren't online because they're too recent due to
Mhm.
privacy laws to be available online. But if you went to the town of Modugno and looked up 1962 deaths, number 17, you're going to find them there.
Amazing.
Yeah. And the same thing with this marriage record. 3 December 1895, number 88. I've got it. If I pull it up, you will see. Yep, there's the marriage record. So this is just a point. It's not an actual marriage record. It's just pointing you to say, go look here for the marriage record.
Yeah. And most
All
of the
right,
time are like this.
and excuse me, Antonati, one huge place for Italian records. So another place for Italian birth records. I mentioned that most of the records or all the records on Antonati were filmed by Family Search. So
Now this is where you're going to make us work, right?
yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
So here's Family Search. The Family Search catalog is
But it should be noted that some towns you can readily see on Family Search, but some towns are hidden behind a wall, and you have to go to like the library to actually see these records.
Correct. Yeah, and Family Search, they have not made things easy because I think they're in the process of trying to streamline their holdings. But in some cases, you've got 3 different places where you might have to look within Family Search for Italian records, and that's a pain, unfortunately. But you have what are called their published collections. Then you have something called the catalog, which is their old, huge, giant thing. But apparently they're not adding things to the catalog anymore. Now everything that is new goes into what is called Family Search Images, and that has a separate search function. So you have a number of different places just within Family Search that you would be looking for places. But if I go for Modugno, and I pull it up, I get 3 choices for civil registration. One is 1809 to 1900, and then 1920. This is actually the one that is going to be parallel to the holdings that are in Antenati that I had shown you at first. So you'll see that it's got a huge list of them on the left side. It's kind of grouped by year, so it's not really neatly done. You can't just go year by year by year here. But you see on the right side that all of these little icons on Family Search has a camera with a key, which tells you you cannot access these at home. You've got to go someplace else to access them. And I have a little script in mind that tells me where you go to look at them. And so this is telling me that all of these, in order to see them, you have to go to either a Family Search affiliate library, which could be your local library, or a Family History Center, which are now called Family Search Centers, or if you are a card-carrying member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the Mormons, you have a special Family Search account, and you can look at these yourself at home. And then there are some records within here that are, this one right here that's highlighted has a camera without a key. It says anybody can look at these. They're online because they were filmed under a separate agreement. That's about all I could tell you with that. You have some more here that in a second area these are filmed separately again. They're all available online. So you've got marriages up until the early 1940s here. So I mean that's pretty darn recent for a lot of us. So the privacy rules for Italy that they have a Family Search say you can't have birth records more recent than 100 years available online, and you can't have marriage and death records more recent than 75 years available online. And so 75 years from 1945 gets you up to 2020, which I think is probably the last time they kind of looked at this. They're supposed to be beginning the process of kind of updating these annually, and so they have more records like these right here, these records that have no access under them. They're filmed, they exist, but they're not available online because they have some sort of privacy contingent attached to them. And once those contingencies expire, Family Search should make them available online.
So no one would have access. So even going to a Family Search Center.
That's correct. The only place you could actually see these is if you went to Salt Lake City to the big library and pulled the actual physical film.
What about it if I went to Italy? They would decline it there too?
In Italy, if you went there and asked, generally, unless you are a direct descendant of the person we're asking about, they're going to say, yeah, no, you can't have it.
That makes sense.
But by and large, they are more than willing to help you out with their research. If you email them nicely in Italian, obviously, and just say, hey, I would like X, Y, and Z. So,
all right. So Antenati, Family Search are the hugest holders of Italian records by far. Third place goes to Ancestry, which they do have a handful of records from the north that neither Antenati nor Family Search has.
Interesting. Okay.
And again, most of them, actually, I think all of them pretty much are not indexed. So same deal. You've got to look through and scroll town by town, year by year, image by image.
I like how it also says in Italian. I mean,
yeah, they are all in Italian. So and some of them that say in Italian, like these Aosta Valley ones, some of them are actually in French.
Okay.
It looks exactly the same as the Italian records, but because that was an area that was typical, like up near Switzerland, that has a lot of French history and French speakers, they kept the records in French for a number of years. Who knew?
That's another cracking the code tip. Thank you.
Exactly. All right, so let's go back now to our sources page on the project page here. So we have a list of primary sources, and then what you might find really helpful is, well, how do I translate these suckers?
Mm-hmm.
So there is a Facebook group called Genealogical Translations that has put together this list that I helped contribute to. So you've got dictionaries, and then you've got guides to what these things look like. And I think what are the really the best ones are things that have been put out by Family Search. So they have 3 different sets, and these were put together mostly for people who are like doing indexing. So it's not teaching you how to read every last word on them, but how to navigate these records and find the information. So it's PDFs, and hopefully it'll pop up here in a second.
But this is brilliant too. That even though it was made for indexing, that's what most researchers know how to research in type
Yeah,
in
exactly.
indexing.
So this is showing you what the layout of a post 1874 birth record looks
This
like.
is great.
It's kind of highlighted. It's like, well, here's the pre-printed form. Here's where you go to find all the information. So, there's a date up here. That's not the birth date. It's the record date. How do you find the birth date? Well, it says down a little bit further when the child was born. Who's the father? Who's the mother? It tells you how to figure out all that information. And
but you also want to keep in mind that the presentation date when they present the baby to the mayor is not usually when the baby was born. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. You have to watch out for that.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. So by Italian law, you had, I think, like 3 or 4 days to register the baby. And even then, if you were late, you could still register it, but you had to go to court and get a court order to allow that to be done.
It gets messy.
Yeah. But so Family Search has guides like these for birth, marriage, and death records for post 1874. Then on their main wiki page for Italian civil registration, which I'll get pulled up here, they have the Family Search wiki, again, really great information, but they have a list of what you can find in civil records. And
That's a great list. Yeah.
yeah, and then they have some translations in there also. So down under births, I showed you kind of like what that post 1874 birth record here is, what the pre 1865 civil records looked like. And let's see if I can get it blown up like this. There we go.
Yeah.
So civil birth and marriage records from the time of 1815 through 1865. Which you're mostly going to find in the Kingdom of Two Sicilies in the south. They weren't dual purpose records, but there was still, there was a clear tie between church and state on here, because you've got a civil registration on the left side of the record here. This is all the civil information. And on the right side, hey, here's when they got baptized. So it's not the baptism record, because the baptism record is at the church, but they sent a copy of the birth record to the church, to the priest, and say, when you baptize the baby, fill this out and return it. And so they did that, and it gets put in the right column of the birth record.
So it's a clue to go further.
Exactly. Yeah. Because if you want to go back before civil records, you've got to go to church records. And depending on where you are in Italy, if it's a fairly good sized town, there's more than one church. So you need to kind of know which church you're going to be going to look at. So that is what the pre-unification marriage record looks like. A birth record. Here's what a pre-marriage unification marriage record looks like. So again, 2 columns. Left side is the civil information, which is, it's technically not a marriage record. It's just it's a civil contract to say, hey, you and I, we agree we're going to go get married in the church, because in the Kingdom of Two Sicilies, there's no civil marriage. There's only church marriage.
But it also should be noted, on the birth records, sometimes in the post 1850s, we have not only just the father and the mother mentioned, sometimes we have the grandfather mentioned too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So the supporting documentation for marriages has a virtual treasure trove of stuff if you can find the supporting documents. So on the left side, you've got the civil contract date. On the right side is, here's when they had the actual church marriage. Sometimes it's the same day, sometimes it's a day later, a couple days later, could be up to 12 months later. And if after 12 months, this civil promise expired, and they had to go through the process again.
Would
You know,
this be similar to what England has for bands?
Sort of similar. There actually are things called publications,
Mhm.
which serve the same purposes as bands in the Catholic Church. They're civil bands. So in some cases you have the publication records. The promessa, the promise, will actually tell you if when the publications were made. So it'll say, hey, we're doing this contract on the 1st of December. They already made publications, and you can find them. They were made on November 8th and November 15th. So then you can go, and if those records are available, you can go and see, well, here's the publications.
That's good.
Okay.
Now, we have a few minutes left.
Yeah.
What should we know? What else should we know about cracking the code about documents? Because we're in Italy now, and if I don't speak Italian, I don't really know the region. So you've given me the tips, and I love the spreadsheet you put together. I think that will be my first place that I would go.
So what I would say to you is that, take a here. I've put together. So here is a transcription translation that I made of documents of the post 1874 documents for birth, marriage, and death. They're all available through our project page, and so I've got it outlined in Italian and then highlighted in the English translations. So here's the good thing about these. These are forms, and they're very formulaic. Once you get into the rhythm of looking at more than one of these, 2, 3, 4, 5, you start to understand how these things, what the rhythm of them looks like, and understand what you're expecting to find in each of them. So it doesn't tell you outright on one of these birth records who's the father, but it will say who's appearing to declare the birth, and most cases that's the father. And the way you know that is because later on it'll say it. Oh, go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, in some cases you'll even have like the midwife.
Yeah, exactly. So it always tells you who the mother is, but it doesn't directly say who the father is. But if it's the father who's registering the marriage, it'll say, hey, this child was born to Sarah Evans, my wife, or his wife, who lives with him. Okay, well, all right. Well, there you kind of know by reference that the person registering the birth is the father. And if it's not the father, if it's somebody else, it'll say, all right, who's the mother? And then it'll say who their husband is. So you'll get it one way or the other.
You just got to keep looking. Don't take the first thing that you see and say, this is assumption, this is going to be a birth, and move on. You really got to keep looking at Italian records and paging through. Seems like there's more information on an Italian source than I even knew. And go to the next page. Or, if you're looking at manifests, there's always more information.
Exactly. Yeah. So I would say, for looking at Italian records, do you need to speak fluent Italian? No. Do you need to speak any Italian? Not really. If you have a cheat sheet, like, Family Search has a good, like one-page wiki article of, kind of like the, your glossary of Italian terms.
I do.
I mean, if you know the months, if you know numbers, you've got dates.
Yeah.
I mean, that's 9/10 of the battle right there. The other portion of it is reading the handwriting, which again, it takes time and experience. We got links for that too. BYU has a fabulous script tutorial for like looking at Italian script and understanding how the letters are formed. And it's again one of those things like once you get the hang of it and do 5, 10, 15, you start to understand, hey, I recognize that word.
Especially, would you say the same person for a number of years is writing the same documents over and over, so you learn their handwriting as well?
Absolutely. Yeah, you learn their style. And I think another thing I would tell you is that if you're looking at documents, you find the document of your ancestor and there's something you can't read, look at the surrounding records and see if you get, hey, are they writing the same word? And maybe I get a better look at it.
Another cracking the code. Yeah,
exactly. Just they slipped, their hand slipped when they were writing, whatever. Yeah, so be patient with yourself. It takes time. I mean, I didn't speak a lick of Italian when I started this. I spoke a little bit of Spanish because I took it in high school, but certainly not fluent. Uh, and so that helps you picking up Italian, but you know, most of this I kind of just learned just by repetition and just by doing again and again and again, and having Google Translate available, or Wiktionary is also very good with Italian and Latin if you're going to be getting into church records, to understand what words mean, what's the plural of them, how do you conjugate this verb, if I have a form of a particular verb, well, what does it really mean? Google Translate doesn't always do the best at that. So have multiple sources that you look to for trying to figure out what these words mean. And then you've got us, the members of the project. You joined the project, and
I will tell you, you do have these two gentlemen. I do participate in WikiTree's Rock, the RAWK, which is WikiTree Acts of Random Kindness. It's every other month that we pick somebody who needs to increase their CC7. And seems like every one that I have worked on in my project, Appalachia, sure enough, they have Italian immigrants. And not only did I come to this brick wall because this is not my wheelhouse, I've gone to both of you to help, and you have corrected information for us and brought back generations for us for the random acts of kindness. These two gentlemen are always available and very gracious with your time, I might add.
Yep. Yeah. So if you're stuck, put a G to G message out there, or if you're in the group, if you're in our the project, we have a Google group that you can send questions to. If you are on Discord, on the WikiTree Discord, we have an Italian channel there. Pop in there, ask a question. We got people who will help.
And I like how you did say you can see where it says add Italy to your following tags. That's on your personal profile. But if you do a G2G post, definitely make sure to tag Italy. Yep. And these gentlemen will find it and he'll try and help you out. I want to thank you guys so much for being here today because I've learned even more. I learned so much from Bingo and took those skills. So now I'm learning even more. I think the big takeaway is you're going to have to work for some Italian ancestors. It's not going to be something that's here, click here and add it and go on. The second takeaway that I really have is don't assume that one document only has one purpose. So for a birth certificate, don't assume that that's just the birth. Frank showed us, it also had a marriage and a death. Is that a source? The marriage and the death? No, but it gives us the information to take it further to find that source. So you're going to work a little bit, but that's fine. You're going to learn a little bit of Italian along the way and immerse yourself into the culture. I appreciate you guys being here for WikiTree Day 2023. If you guys have any questions after this, please reach out to them. Frank gave you some great ideas. You probably see Chris on a couple of LiveCasts as well. So if you see Chris on a LiveCast and you have an Italian question, feel free to ask him during the LiveCast or Hangout as well. Thank you. I think we've covered a lot during this hour.
Yes, we have.
I guess so. Let me see if I get this correct. So the proper way to say it is ciao.
Ciao.
There we go. Ciao, everyone.
All right. Thanks so much.